Okay, let's get started. Again, I thank you for being here. We'll continue to honor the schedule that was passed out earlier and have these press opportunities at 1:30 tomorrow and then again on Friday. Let me start by giving you some numbers. So far, we have 52,000 ballots received here at Market Street. 36,001 of them are ballots that were cast just today here at Market Street. The lines that you see out to the street have been steady all morning since the polls opened at 7. Looking at the official registration figure of 115,626, that gives us about a 45% turnout rate as of noon today. So I know that number is going to grow because we haven't even begun collecting the precinct ballots. That'll, of course, happen when the polls close at 8:01. In terms of the ballot duplication process, which we put in place for the printing anomaly that we've been trying to address. We have printed 5,367 duplicated ballots as of noon today. So those are ballots that are successfully created to match the exact vote of the voter's ballot, which would not scan through the Hart Intercivic machine because of the scanner bar on the side of the ballot. That process will continue apace. It will be halted tonight as we process precinct ballots, but it will resume again tomorrow in earnest. And again, I remain confident that by the date I must certify the election on December 3rd, we will have successfully duplicated all the ballots that would not scan initially. Beyond that, I'm ready to take questions. Oh, one other thing, in terms of updates this evening, I will be available tonight after the polls close. We'll have 3 rounds of updates. There'll be one just before 9 o'clock. There'll be one around 11ish. We'll try to do that at about 10:45 because I know some of the TV shows have 11 o'clock news hours. And then the last will be at the end of the day when we've done processing all the precinct ballots. We'll give a third update in terms of where we are with tabulated ballots. Yes?
Yes, my question is, have the ballots that have, is the percentage stabilized? Yesterday you said that it was about 50%, is it still about the same?
I haven't gotten updated figures on that. I'm assuming right now that we still have that 50% rate. What I've noticed is that initially there seemed to be a predominance of problems with the B card or the second page of the ballot. Yesterday, that was becoming apparent that it was both cards equally. So it's pretty well distributed throughout the entire print run. If there is going to be what I call the Nevada County bounce, where the failure rate improves, it has not yet manifested in a significant enough form for me to state unequivocally that we're getting that lucky bounce.
On the same topic, you said yesterday you were pretty confident that the ballots at the precinct were good to go. Have you done any more testing to find out if that's the case still? Or?
Well, no, we ran one batch, a pretty significant batch, without any problems. And of course, we haven't started running any precinct ballots because the polls haven't closed. But at 8:01, when those ballots are being brought back here, those will be our principal concern. Those will be what we'll be processing, and we won't stop processing until every one of those is accounted.
If the precinct ballots need duplicating, will you be duplicating them this evening or later on?
Well, if they need duplicating, we'll begin duplicating them.
Tonight? Okay.
Yes. Unfortunately, because of the state of the law, at that point, we would have to be duplicating around the clock without any, except for ordinary breaks for the use of the restroom and meals. We would be continuing to tabulate, which means I'd be demanding an incredible amount of work from my staff and from the other county employees who are helping. And, we'll hopefully receive more assistance. But at this point, I have no indication that the precinct ballots are going to cause us that kind of a problem.
Is there any staff on call to help you if that happens?
Right now, I've had extreme cooperation from the county executive officer, and when we've put out a request for additional county employees to help us with the duplication process, they've been more than generous. We've had a number of people come. There is a bit of a trade-off. If we could have the same people every time, we wouldn't have to train them up every morning. Right now, we're fortunate in that we've got some repeats, and we've got a buddy system going where a person who's done it and has become proficient is helping someone who's a first-timer and getting them up to speed. But at this stage, we have to do what we can with the people that we've got available.
Is Nevada the only other county with this problematic ballot?
Nevada is the only other county that has the same combination of run-back printed ballots and the Hart intercivic tabulators. I'm beginning to hear some reports of other counties having problems with their printed ballots for other reasons. I know for a fact Orange County, which prints their own ballots, had some problems. I've heard of at least one county out of state that had problems with their printed ballots, but I don't know the details there. Again, why this has happened remains a mystery to me. I'm certainly curious about it, and I know the Secretary of State is going to get to the bottom of it, but all I know is I have a problem, and now I have a solution, and that's what I'm focusing on.
Has Hart Intercivic explained why this happened? Is Hart Intercivic in the building today?
Hart is here today. They're assisting us. It's too early to explain. I mean, there's lots of study that's going to have to go into this, and I'm going to let the Secretary of State take the lead on that. It's not my job to figure out why it went wrong. It's my job to solve the problem, and I think we've done that.
Is that why you contacted the DOJ?
No, the DOJ is here because of my concern that my staff feels that the observership program has gotten aggressive. In some cases, they feel threatened, insecure, and I want to assure their safety, and I want to assure that we have a tone of civility, that we're treating our observers respectfully and following the regs in terms of their rights and responsibilities, but also that my staff feels protected. I'm going to have sheriff's deputies here after the polls close. I've been assured that Reading PD are going to patrol this neighborhood vigilantly, and they're on call. And now I also have DOJ available to me as another resource. They're simply
one example where an observer became aggressive?
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you that my staff has expressed concern to me, and I'm not a judge. I'm not making the decision. I haven't heard the other side's story, but I have acted to work with my staff because they're working very hard under stress to do a great job with a lot of pressure. And so I'm supporting my staff. That's what I'm doing. Yes.
An election observers observing today, what are the protocols and what time do they have to leave, or can they stay during the process?
Observers can stay until the process is completed. There are protocols, there are regulations that govern it, and we have policies about how they observe. what they're meant to observe. And, we're always available if they have questions. We try to answer those questions immediately. If we can't, we ask them to write it down and provide it to us so that we can eventually get an answer for them. On the other side of the coin, if I have disruptive behavior by observers, which I have in some instances, we have a policy of 3 strikes and you're out. The first time, the staff member has the opportunity to assert their right and cease work for 15 minutes. So I have to close operations down in some cases to accommodate my staff. And if the person returns in 15 minutes, they're advised to avoid that behavior in the future. If they don't, if there's a second incident, then they're asked to leave for an entire day, a cooling off period. And then if they return and there's a third instance in which there's disruptive behavior where I have to cease operations because of the behavior of an observer, that observer will be asked not to return. They will no longer be able to observe in that particular election.
Has anybody received 1 strike yet?
Yes. I can tell you that that's as far as it's gone. And I hope that other observers will respect my staff and treat them civilly, understand they're people, they're just trying to do their job. That's all they want to do is deliver a fair and impartial election for the citizens of Shasta County.
Have you been
Yes.
able to identify? Regarding the county workers who are coming in to help, how many are you bringing in, and is that voluntary or are they being assigned here?
In some cases, I've been told they're being voluntolding by their supervisors or department heads. But for the most part, they've all come here, and after they've started to work, they don't seem to mind. They're very helpful. We've had as many as up to 12 to 15 employees at any one time. They're being paid overtime by my department initially, but as I said yesterday, I fully expect to recover that cost from Runbeck, Hart, or some combination of the two. I don't expect the taxpayers of Shasta County to foot the bill for this in any way.
Can you define voluntolding?
Voluntolding is when I tell one of my staff, guess what? You've got a job. I need you to do it. And even if they don't want to do it, they still have to do it.
What about other departments, though?
I think that's a universal management code. Sometimes you have to ask people to do things that they prefer not to do. Some of the work we do, as you can imagine, is pretty tedious, looking at pages and pages and pages of ballots, trying to see if they've been marked correctly. That's probably not what they ordinarily do. They work in IT, they work in the auditor's office, they work in other departments, personnel, and so this is kind of out of their wheelhouse. But these are hardworking, dedicated people, they're intelligent people, and they understand that when the county needs them, they pull together. You know, Homeland Security has determined that elections are critical infrastructure. And if anything demonstrates that, we're in a situation where our ballots are compromised and we need to respond. We've got the threat of a PG&E power safety shutoff looming over us tonight. There are areas of the county that are covered by PG&E, and if that shutoff occurs, that could very well impact some of my precincts. So those are the kinds of situations that call for extraordinary measures, and that's when county comes together and rises to the occasion. Every employee, when they join the county, acknowledges that they might be called out under emergency situations. Usually that's, fires, the kinds of things you'd expect first responders to. But every county employee understands that one day they might get the call, they'll have to help. And I'm gratified that they answer that call, and they seem to be doing it very cheerfully.
Can I tail off the PG&E?
Have you had any reports of intimidation at polling places today outside of
I've had no reports other than one instance where one of our ballot box retrieval teams was followed by a driver. She exited her car when they stopped here at Market and was shouting quite angrily at them, alleging that they had been violating laws. We spoke with the two. I was determined that those claims were baseless. We haven't identified who that person was. Hopefully, the situation was de-escalated appropriately, and that is the end of the matter. But beyond that, I haven't heard of any incidents. None has been conveyed to me, and I hope it remains that way. Yes.
Again, please give an overview of the time frame when people can expect updates and results.
Yes, certainly. I'm going to do 3 updates after the polls close. The first will be before 9 o'clock tonight. The second will be about 11-ish, about 10:45, so we can accommodate our partners in the media. And then the last will be when we're done counting the precinct ballots. So at the very end of the day, I'll do the final update. And then the plan is to do an additional update on Friday after we've had an opportunity to process more ballots, vote by mail ballots, and so forth. Yes.
This is kind of in response to Trump's rhetoric about illegal aliens voting or immigrants. Do you think there are loopholes for illegal immigrants to vote in the voting process here in California?
All I can tell you is that it's required to be a U.S. citizen to vote in California.
Is there a requirement of showing any identification?
No. The only person that has to show identification at the poll is in a federal race like this, where we're voting for presidents and congresspeople. If you're a first-time voter and you didn't provide, say, a birth date or social security number when you registered, then the federal law requires us to ask for identification. And when they go to the polls, the no-ink poll pad notifies us that that request must be made. In every other instance, we're not allowed to ask for identification, and if people try to show us identification, many people pull out their driver's license and want to show it to us, and we tell them, I'm sure you have a very nice picture, but we're not going to look at that. It's not required, and we don't do it. There are four simple requirements to vote in California. You have to be over 18 years of age, you have to be a U.S. citizen, you have to be not declared mentally incompetent by a judge, and you have to be not behind bars in jail or prison. If you're out on parole or probation, you're entitled to vote. And then the last one is you have to be registered. If you're not in our registration system, you won't get a ballot. And if you cast a ballot, it'll be a provisional ballot. And unless it's married up with a registration record, eventually, that was executed before the polls close today, that ballot won't count. That's as simple as. Can I tell you as I stand here today that someone who's not a U.S. citizen has actually managed to vote a ballot somewhere in this state? I can't tell you that. I can tell you this, I don't ask for ID, I don't look at people, I don't have an innate sense of, oh, you look like a U.S. citizen, but you look like a Uruguayan, so no vote for you. So we don't do that. We just look, are they registered? If they're registered and they provide us with their name and the address, then they get a ballot.
I have a follow-up
Yes.
to the PG&E power outage. Are your precincts, are they prepared if the power goes out to issue a paper ballot with a flashlight and using the street roster, the paper street roster, to allow somebody to vote and submit a vote?
We have contingencies in place if we lose power. One of them is that we will use the street roster. Every precinct has a third street roster, which can be used as a paper poll book to replace the electronic poll pad. There are emergency lighting. Some of our polling places will have other capabilities which will be offered by the hosts. Every polling place has an uninterruptible power supply which lasts for some amount of time. It's basically a battery, so it'll store its power for quite a while, and it will allow us to print the ballots on the touch writers if we're assisting anybody with an ADA requirement that needs to create the ballot using the technology. So we do have contingencies in place for that. Yes.
Follow up on my question. Do you have to prove citizenship to register to vote?
You don't have to prove citizenship, but you do have to provide certain information when you register to vote. Your birth date and your driver's license number or your social security number.
Do you think that gets checked at the final stage, like the federal level? Do they start like looking into that and then removing those non-citizens, or do you know if that, you know how that works?
Well, I mean, your question presupposes that there's a number of non-citizens who are actually managed to register. I don't have any evidence of that in Shasta County. I can't speak to anywhere else. I do know that every registrar of voters strives to keep their registrar, their roll of voters as up to date and as accurate as possible. I'm very proud of our team here. We're usually, we receive a weekly report from the Secretary of State. We are usually one of the only counties that has a less than 1% failure to comply rate with updating our registration rolls. So my team is very good about keeping the rolls updated within the law. Now, just because someone says, hey, I know my neighbor died, or I know my neighbor moved to Idaho, it's not as simple as, okay, take their name out. We have to send them notification. We have to give them an opportunity to explain whether they're still registered here in Shasta County or not. And only after the passage of a couple of elections, without the return of that notice, are we then permitted to remove their name from the active registration roll.
Sir, is that the same for undeliverable ballots?
Pardon?
Is that the same for undeliverable ballots? They should be removed immediately, right? They don't have to respond.
Undeliverable ballots are then flagged in our system, and those people don't receive a ballot in the mail, right? They have to obtain a ballot at the precinct or down here. When they present themselves, then we would get to the root of that.
The reason why I'm asking is because during the last election, there was 2,800 undeliverable, and 2,000 of those actually received ballots during this election, and some
All
of those...
right, that's not a question, that's a statement. Does anybody else have a question? Yes.
Thank you. Could you clarify, I'm hearing reports that the Veterans Hall precinct had some kind of pole tab outage, and the phones are going to Court Street, not here. Could you clarify?
I haven't had any report of that.
Okay. Can I do one last follow-up on observation people?
Well, let's give others a question, opportunity to question. Any other questions? You, sir.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Toller. On RV Shack for the News Cafe. First thing, could you comment? It's roughly 2 o'clock. How's your staff holding up so far?
I think today very well. Things have been calm but busy. Obviously, the tone is going to change at 8:01 when we kick into high gear and actually have to start processing quite a few ballots. But I'm confident that everyone is up for the task. We all know Election Day is a long day. We're probably not going to be done until about 3:30 in the morning. Hopefully we get a start an hour later tomorrow. Give them a little bit of an opportunity to catch some shut-eye tonight. But so far, so good.
And can you explain generally what sort of behavior will earn an election observer a strike?
Yes, it's behavior that is loud, aggressive, and basically causes one of my employees to feel like they can't do their job, and so they have to ask for an opportunity to step away. And we honor that request, and at that point, the behavior has disrupted the process. In some cases, somebody else can step into their role, and we don't really have much of an interruption. But in some cases, we basically have to shut the operation down for a half hour, and even that brief amount of time slows things down incredibly. And given the situation we have now, a half-hour interruption is critical because we're duplicating ballots in numbers that we've never had to do before.
And that goes for all the districts, not just here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yes.
Have you received any reports of any potential election crimes other than what you talked about earlier?
The only election crime that I've referred to the DA was the allegation of the gentleman who posted on Reddit that he voted for ballots. I haven't heard from the DA's office. Until I do, I won't close the matter, but I've heard anecdotally that he gave a statement to the press, and he may have spoken now to them, and he claims it was all a big joke. Unfortunately, if that were true, it was in very, very poor taste. We take election fraud very seriously, and I feel the referral to law enforcement was appropriate. But other than that, so far in this election, I haven't seen any other evidence of election fraud, no.
Can you talk about observer behavior around voters? There were some reports that there were observers here today or people here today that were sort of wandering around among voters and having conversations. Can you talk about appropriate etiquette in those settings?
Well, I mean, certainly this is a public place. They're entitled to go up and speak to people. I would hope they would respect, if I said I don't want to talk, I'm concentrating on voting. The one thing they can't do is take photographs of voters. That's absolutely forbidden by law. So that's why we ask you to turn your cameras toward this side. Focus on me. I don't mind if you take my picture. But we respect our voters. We respect their rights. So again, I mean, it's just like any human interaction. You should be governed by civility. If someone wants to talk to you, keep it brief, ask them a question, tell them, hey, isn't it a great day to vote? And then move on. If they say, hey, I don't want to talk, I'm busy thinking about who I'm going to vote for, respect that. Walk away, find somebody else to talk to. It's simple. I don't understand why we would have any questions about that.
Quick question. What protections, if any, exist for the observers, like what I experienced yesterday as far as being foul language, threatening, loud, and I didn't want anything to do with this individual. What happens to us when we're in the observer role for our safety and protection?
Well, as you'll recall, I tried to de-escalate that situation. It wasn't successful, and I would say that was on both parties' sides. But ultimately, I asked you all to leave. It was the end of the day. There were very few observable activities left. Really, the only thing left was the Agilis machine. We had some late ballot box deliveries. So, that situation was unfortunate, but it could have easily been prevented if everybody just remembered, hey, be civil, keep your voices normal, indoor voices, and walked away.
I was only here an hour, sir, and you came down and still...
Ma'am, I'm not interested in giving you a forum to defend yourself. If you don't have a question, I think we're done today. Again, I'll be here tomorrow at 1:30 to continue this process. If you've got questions, I'll keep you updated on numbers as I have them. And then we have the 3 updates tonight after the polls close. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.